Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with something very different for you today. Some of you may recognize the battlefield on screen right now, and others might not. If it doesn't seem like something you've seen in the game before, that's because it isn't. This is a custom map made entirely using Total War Warhammer's brand new terrain editor, Terry. There's a chance this battlefield was featured on the Total War stream earlier today, and I wanted to showcase just how easy it was to make this map using Terry. I think the tool is awesome, and I look forward to seeing all the shiny new maps that come out when it's released. If you're interested, I could look into doing a tutorial series about Terry, though this first video should give a good showcase of just how easy it's going to be. If you have any questions or you would like to see a set of tutorials, let me know in the comments below. Now, first things first, when you start a new map on Terry, you get sort of a choice of the kind of vista you want to select. Now, you're not tied down to this, you can change it later, but it basically determines the type of vegetation, the type of textures, etc. used. So, knowing me, we're gonna go with Vampire Counts 01 because vampires, and let's try and create an interesting sort of map. Now, we'll call it, let's see, over here onto the right side, we can call it something. Let's go with Skull Pass because skulls are cool and passes are interesting or something. And let's make it, I want to make something interesting with regards to ambushes. So a mountain pass ripe for ambush, and the author, of course, Party Elite, myself. Now, first things first, when I'm trying to build out a map or a level of any kind, and a lot of this stuff, it's not like I'm a professional level or map designer, but just my own sort of approach, the first thing I'd like to do is get an idea of how I want things to work. Now, in terms of controlling the screen and stuff, it's all very similar to the actual battlefield. A couple of differences, but overall you have similar controls, you can drag yourself around, and one thing that I actually don't like is how you rotate the screen. So I'm just going to change that real quick, go to the settings tab here, and change rotation mode to orbit, and now this is sort of what I'm more used to from when I used to work on 3D modeling software and stuff. But yeah, so now that I've got that set up, let's just sketch out a quick plan. I'm going to switch my camera type to orthographic. That gives me a flat top-down view of the battlefield. As you can see, it can get quite massive. I think that's where the person was. It doesn't matter where that little model was, that's just for scale. But just in this, I'll quickly sketch out what I'm planning on doing here. Let's just use this map, this sort of texture map here. I'll explain everything I'm doing afterwards when it's actually functional. What I'd like to do is I'd like to create sort of this like little hilly area in the middle that has a ramp on both sides to sort of intersect in the middle, and then I want to, we'll have like forested areas off to either side, here and here, so you can kind of come in from the sides to ambush, or you can go up the hill in the middle to engage. So let's just undo all of that really quickly and flip back into our regular camera mode. All right, there we go. There's our little guy. So again, that's just for a sense of scale, and you don't necessarily have to use that. It's just a good idea to like scale your mountains and you know, skulls that we're gonna have and whatnot. Anyway, so let's get ourselves started. So I want to have like a little hilly area in the middle and forest to the side, like I said. Now, what you can actually do is you can paint height of the terrain directly with sort of a brush type feature. So as you can see, I've got a little brush open, and you can paint right onto the terrain. You've got sort of additive. Let's just change the brush a little bit, change our scale to shrink it down. Can do that with like keyboard shortcuts as well. And let's also change our hardness here. That's just the fall off, how softly it changes the terrain. And okay, that should be good to start. I'm just being a bit more, I'm explaining my steps a bit more in the beginning here, but we'll dive into the fast work shortly. In fact, actually, let's use a pre-existing sort of terrain feature here. I want to get a cliff. I believe they're called cliffs. Yeah, so let's get some cliffs in here. There we go. These are some nice cliffs, and what you can do is you can actually put down these pre-created or prefabricated. I hesitate to use that word because prefabs are a specific thing in this world, but you can use these sort of pre-created props and buildings and terrain features, etc., to actually build out your own maps. Now, if I can just find what I'm looking for here, this looks sort of like it, and you'll see there's some pretty complex types of features, like terrain features and all, available, but of course you'll notice there are some like holes in these models and stuff like that. I'll explain all that in a minute. Now, this looks like what I want. Now I'm rotating these things by holding down control and moving the mouse left and right. You'll see a setting here is changing, so you can actually do that numerically as well if you're sort of the precise type. And you can also change the scale of these features, and they actually grow and shrink quite nicely, and it's really nice to see the engine in action like this. It makes it really simple, actually, to build your own maps. Now, okay, so again, this is the center. We're going to treat Z as north, as you can see indicated down at the bottom left here. So I want to have one of these over here, and we'll put another one down over here. I want to have enough distance between these two so that the center can be an actual battlefield. So let's pop it down over here. And already you can see, again, obviously there's this giant hole in the middle, and we're going to fix that right now. Now, if I did want to adjust this a touch, I can actually select these now that I've placed them, and I can move them around. I can sort of shift them down and up if I want them to hover for some reason. So you actually are able to go in and adjust afterwards, of course. And in fact, let's try and get into some good habits right from the beginning here. Create an create a layer here and call it, I mean, let's call it cliffs. I'm going to start developing better naming conventions and stuff. I'm sure if anyone at CA is watching this right now, they're probably cringing and hoping I'd stop. But it's always good to have a system developed. Now, you'll notice the edges of these little props, they kind of hover above and around and whatnot, and they're never going to clear up, and that's why moving them around a little bit helps just smooth out those edges, for example. So that's something to pay attention to, and you'll notice I'll be doing a lot of that as I go on. Now, though, let's get ourselves this sort of central hilltop. And at this point, I'm probably just going to work away and not explain so much what I'm doing as much as just sort of work away, and a lot of it should be pretty clear. Over here, I'm going to change, you can change your flow, you can change your height, you can actually cap your height so it can only go so high no matter how much you add on top. And each click adds another much of that capped height, and it can be, you know, whatever you'd like it to be. There's, of course, subtraction if you want to dig a valley instead. Absolute takes everything to a specific height and only that specific height, so that's great if you want to create like a plateau or something like that. And of course, the smooth option you can actually activate by pressing shift, and you can just soften your terrain. But let's undo all that mess. Now, I'm adjusting the height of the map. I'm changing the height map. You'll notice over here, I've got a height option. You've got the base. You can actually create a new layer, and I'm going to call this layer, again, this is probably going to grind some gears, but I'm going to call it Central Cliffs. I think is the right word. Now, as an example of what that can do, I've got a separate layer, so let's put down this absolute, sort of this plateau. And let's say I want to adjust it, but I don't want to go in and fiddle. You can actually shift your opacity over here. You can see what it looked like with and without that layer. So having these extra layers makes it really easy to do, undo, and replace various sort of decisions you'd made. Now, let's undo that. Central Cliffs. Let's go into add mode, and I'm going to, no, it's not cap it. If the software would let me. All right, it's because I've got it hidden. Whoa! All right, let's undo all of that. All right, one more. No, there we go. Okay, now that we're back on track, so let's get this going here. Reduce our height. Make sure it's not blowing up like that. Change our hardness here a little bit and reduce our flow again, just to make it a bit more gradual, like you can see here. Now you can always go in and adjust afterwards, obviously, but let's get this going first. So I want it to go up to the top over here, and then over here we're gonna get up to the top over here, and that'll be the top of the cliff. Let's just spread this out a little bit real quick. And again, holding down shift and clicking and dragging is to smooth the terrain out. So again, I want to have sort of a plateau, if you will, at the top here, and this hillside, sort of cliffside blocking entrance from either side. So again, I want to funnel entry points and then have the option of ambushing from the sides as well. So that's the plan. So let's keep going here, change our scale a little bit. I'm still getting familiar with the keyboard shortcuts, etc. So this is certainly not the most efficient you can be with the software, but again, it's just to show just how easy it really is to make your own terrain. And again, of course, as with more practice will come better, what's the word I'm looking for here? Finesse or precision, if you will. So it's definitely too early to make I guess, decisions on just how easy this looks, just looking at me kind of messing around here, getting a hang of this stuff. Obviously, with more practice, these kinds of things and more complex things become plausible. So let's take everything here with a grain of salt, and it is pre-release. So let's keep that in mind as well as we mess around here, that it is pre-release, so there are things that are subject to change. They might make some things a little bit easier to deal with, some things easier to visualize, and maybe some tool tips, etc. A lot of possibilities, but thought I would share this with you guys because it's pretty neat. All right, and honestly, when terrain editors and map editors get announced, I often approach it with a bit of skepticism, because it's easy to put a tool out there that then is very difficult to master or use, and that just becomes, I don't want to say frustrating, because it's still greatly appreciated, but it just when you sit down with the software for the first time, you realize the reality, and many people, I've been there myself, just sort of give up right away, and they realize that, you know what, I'm never going to be able to make my custom battlefields, etc. We have a little bit sticking out there, but that's fine, because we're going to cover it up later with a different sort of method. Let's get this flattened a bit more. All right, there we go. So again, that's sort of why, I'm really happy with this product, because it is very intuitive. It doesn't take too much, to get used to it and to understand what's going on. But also, that's why I wanted to do this video, because just for people who saw today's stream and are now wondering exactly how this works. Of course, I have no idea. Maybe the Creative Assembly folks already covered this topic in the stream, so I'm just being repetitive, but I did want to do one of my own. And as I mentioned, of course, if you guys want tutorial videos, etc., just let me know, and I'd be happy to do them, because I love this kind of stuff. Now, let's adjust our little cliffs here a little bit. Want to scale it up, so you'll see you've got movement, rotation, and scale, so you can do all kinds of really interesting stuff here. Let's get some of that going. So I just want to, again, tuck it in, hide the little holes. Actually, let's keep that there. Let's see, maybe we rotate it to face down a little bit and push a little bit further up and down. So there you go, we've changed the shape a touch. I don't know if I'm entirely happy with that. A lot of this like finessing and finagling is going to be common. Obviously, making an interesting battlefield is a time-consuming process. Much love and respect to the people who painstakingly go in and build these beautiful maps for us to fight on. But again, this is just sort of a showcase, and also I do hope that this was shown on the stream, because I think it's a pretty neat map in terms of how it's structured. Let's see, this is pretty good. I think we have enough room here to actually have an engagement. Just smooth this out a little bit more. So let's see, we've got our ramp here. Maybe this one's a little bit too moundy, maybe we can touch it down just a little bit. So let's do a little bit of that, smooth it out a bit more. All right, there we go. So yeah, we've got a little raise there, and we get to the top of the cliff here, and over here, same thing. We go up the hill, get to the top of the cliff. All right, and this does need to be reduced a bit, because it's just a bit too high. Oh, that's too much. All right, let's try and figure this out here. Again, I'm sure there are probably more efficient ways of working some of these tools. And those are all things that I'm getting a hang of, so that I can, again, sort of talk about them in a more thorough manner. All right, let's adjust this cliff here so it fits into the space we've made for it. There we go. And the top, let's just move that in a touch, down a bit. All right, I think we just need to adjust this a little bit. Let's scale it up just in that one axis. So again, you can like scale in multiple axes or single or double. If you've ever used any 3D software before, like 3D Studio Max or anything like that, a lot of this will seem very familiar to you, and it'll feel like home in many ways. If you haven't, trust me, these softwares are a lot easier to get a hang of than they seem. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at these things. And again, if you have any questions about a specific thing I've done, timestamp it in the comments and ask me, hey, how did you do this? How does that work? How does this happen? And of course, as always, as you guys know with me, I'm always happy to respond to those kinds of questions, especially when it's something as cool as this. Let's smooth that out. I'm wondering if I'm overdoing it here. I think that's good. A lot of this stuff will get covered up soon, so I'm not too worried about the, green poking out here and there. But yeah, all right, so when you are playing around in this sort of setup, as you can tell, this isn't what the map is really going to look like. We all know that. The engine itself does a great job of rendering out the map beautifully. So let's pop into world view for a quick second here, and you'll see almost instantaneously it adds all the fog effects and the shadows and lighting and everything, and now you can see what the map so far actually looks like. So pretty cool how that how quick that is. And let's actually, not happy about this. So let's go back in here, we're in subtract, and let's just poke it out a bit more. There we go, much better. All right, and there we go. I could nuance this stuff forever. Now, I do want the edges of these cliffs to also be impassable. I don't want someone to just go up and then be able to ride down. Now, when you go above a certain inclination, it is impossible, it becomes impassable terrain, but I want to make sure that visually that also looks a bit more interesting. Now, there is a gap there. So let's just plug it by moving this a little bit. No, actually. There we go. We'll cover this up afterwards. Now, let's get another cliff in here. And I'm going to do something a little different with this. Let's see. All right, let's use this one. Let's pop that in there. And rather than have the whole thing stick out, what you can also do sometimes is you can hide parts of it. And you'll see that I now have sort of this exposed rock going on, and I love this. The engine just sort of blends the edges together and whatnot. So just really cool. And let's actually rotate it so it's jutting upwards. There we go. And done. Maybe we take it a little bit higher. Let's see. Scale it up a touch. Whoops. There we go. And tuck it down. So again, we want to make sure that all the edges and stuff are blended in nicely into the terrain. Nothing is sticking out in a weird way like it's not supposed to. But you have to obviously sometimes go back and forth between this tool and actually rotating your pieces to get everything to work right. So let's just smooth this out. There we go. Close, close. Let's shrink our brush a touch and create a giant bump there. Okay. There we go. So now, I've used like a sort of structure and tucked a huge part of it away so you can't actually see all of it, and it creates a completely different element. So it's a nice way sort of to use modular design, so to speak, and create these cliffs. Now let's get a different one in there. I think I used the same one 3 times. I think that's probably my favorite element, if you will. Let's get this one in here as well, and again, just use the move tool. We'll pop it into the terrain here. Let's move it down a bit, have it stick out a little, and let's see. Come on. Push it down. There we go. Now, as I mentioned, you need to sort of, over time, you'll start learning the names of the various models, etc., and it becomes easier to find what you're looking for. I've been playing around with this a little bit, so I am familiar with some of the names. And that makes it a lot easier, of course, to work and move along and like sort of find what you're looking for. Come on. If I tuck that down, it only sticks out so much. Not really the effect I'm looking for, so let's push it up a little bit higher. That's closer to it. Maybe if we rotate it the other way. Yeah, looking okay. I think that looks okay. I do have to clean this up, though. Maybe if we scale it down a little bit just on this axis. All right. Push it in. No, I don't think this piece... Maybe this piece just isn't built for what we're going for here. Speak of the devil, I think it just worked out. Okay. Nudge it a bit more and a bit more. And you know what? I just need to adjust the top here and we'll be good. So let's go back into the height editor. Again, we're still on central cliffs. Just gotta make sure of that. And let's reduce the flow a touch. Just have to gently nudge it up. And there we go, smooth it out. And it's hard sometimes to see clearly. Again, I think a lot of that's just either there are more efficient ways to do it that I'm just not noticing right now, or that I haven't had a chance to play around with yet, or it's stuff that will become easier with practice as we do more of these custom maps and start seeing exactly how this stuff works. So I think that works. We've got a little sort of bump here and then exposed rock. It's like the rock was trying to pop out there but just couldn't. And alright, so we've got some edges here that they can't go off of. Maybe we actually make this a touch wider and push it over slightly. There we go. Alright, so just need to adjust the terrain again. Make sure it all fits in nicely. And everything you're looking at is in real time. I'm sure you can tell it's not like been sped up or anything, but if you were wondering like, oh, am I speeding up parts? Am I changing how easy or difficult this looks? No, it's all in real time. And the only reason it's going so slowly is because I am talking at the same time. Of course, it is hard to do both for me sometimes, as you guys know, as you guys have seen multiple times in the past. All right, let's get this capped up. Flatten that out a little bit, and we'll just move this piece down a touch, and that should do the trick. I think we're good there. Good on the edge here. Make sure. And we're good on the edge here. So yeah, there you have it. We've got our cliffs ready. And next up, let's get some interesting decorations going on, maybe. I just want to make one quick edit first. Subtract some of this stuff over here. There we go. Smooth that out a little bit. All right, that I think looks better. And now we're gonna add some interesting elements. Let's get some buildings in here. Actually, let's get some prefabs in here. So prefabs are prefabricated pieces. These are things that have sort of AI tips, vegetation, sound, VFX, a lot of things put together, and it just makes it easier to create certain aspects. So for example, this plateau, which would take me, quite a while to make, has been provided to us, and now I can just add it in as an extra sort of piece of my own map. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add some plateaus here, and you can actually check some of these boxes, like surface oriented actually orients based on the terrain itself, which sometimes obviously you're not gonna wanna use. Surfaces include objects, means other prefabs and terrain pieces, etc. are included in that alignment, so we don't really want either of those here. Let's see. Pop this over here, perhaps. Again, just trying to block off this entry/exit point. And let's just push it down a touch, and you'll see it's a large number of entities actually put together. So it's a very complex piece that Creative Assembly has just provided to us to use, and I don't know if I actually like how that looks there. That's gonna be a big part of this, being satisfied with what you're creating. That's way too big. Come on now. I'm sure we can find... Oh, that's interesting. It's got a skull on it. Though I have some plans for how I want my skulls to look. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to pop this over here. And we're just going to tuck this bad boy in there. So, looks like the terrain's all sealed up. And we have this impassable terrain, but also a decorative element. And it's all, nice and cool. Personally, I think so, at least. Now, all right, let's get... should we get something on this side? Let's see if we get one of those, like, tree ones. All right, this is neat. Maybe we pop this... over here. How does that look? Okay, apart from this corner over here, we can just lower it a touch. Close off the bottom there. Yeah, I think that looks pretty neat. Okay. And then, of course, with the trees, we'll add some more trees around, and hopefully that'll seem a bit more natural. But now, let's get to the namesake of our map here. Let's get some skulls going. Now, let me actually give you a quick preview of the sheer number of items that are available. From the smallest, if I can even zoom in that close, pile of weapons, let's just scale it up just to show you, from these piles of weapons in various structures and layouts to these giant pillars of bones, cliffs, hills, trees, everything, at least it seems like everything that is in the game is available in the terrain editor. So there's a lot of stuff that you can play with, a lot of stuff that you can mess around with to create your own worlds and battlefields. Just, I'm thrilled. I think it's absolutely awesome that we have access to this. Now, I want skulls, and I want big skulls. I want these mountain skulls that we see on the terrain, on the campaign map so often, and I want them to be gigantic, and we're going to do some, what I think is interesting stuff here. Now, let's get that. Again, just hiding, that's why sometimes imperfections are okay, because you're going to end up hiding them, tucking them away in various structures. Now, I want to make sure that we can just keep the upper jaw, I think. Yeah, there we go. He's got a broken eye socket there, so that's one skull, but one skull is never enough, so we're going to add another one. And again, just using what shortcuts I do know to ease the process and help myself speed up, like using sort of control and click when I'm placing an object for the first time to spin it around, for example, in place, or changing my settings so that it orbits and rotates the way I want it to. That stuff is all stuff that you can only experience yourself, but it really does speed up your workflow. Again, let's not get too nuanced here, but yeah, we've got two giant skulls, and you know what? These skulls are missing something. Let's get some VFX in there, and there are lots of VFX. I think also all the VFX that are available in the game, you can actually drop in however you want. So you have complete freedom to do whatever you want with all the various VFX available. Now what I want to do is I want to get sort of a glowy green or blue magic, or maybe we get the balefire. Balefire. Surely that'll answer my call. That looks like a sword. That's Vlad's sword, I think. There we go. Corpse Cart Balefire. We can add that into the eyes. That doesn't look quite right. That's the lights. That's a trail. No. Let's see. Oh, that looks good. Yeah, there we go. So let's up the scale a touch. And let's get some of the eyes, because what else would glow, right? So glowing green eyes. And we're gonna add some skulls over here as well, and we'll give them lights as well. So all of these so far have fallen under this sort of cliffs layer, and just again to show you the power, I can hide all of those presets in a quick click, and it's just to help iterate and create alternative versions, etc. Anyways, let's get these guys all together here, and all these guys, and we're going to copy and paste. I'm going to move them over, and we're going to rotate them. Again, Control-C, Control-V works as copy and paste, in case you were wondering. And let's just tuck these guys into this hill over here, and they fit pretty well. I mean, his lower jaw is showing up, which let's say I'm not okay with, just for the purpose of this example. So let's go in and change the terrain again. There you go. Done. So with all that done, let's take another look at how this would look in-game. So again, just pop that one quick click, and there you have it. You deploy on this side, you see these giant skulls on the way, and if you deploy on the other side, you got these giant skulls on the way. Maybe we got a third one over there? Nah. I think this is good. Now, I want also another effect in here that I saw as I was flipping through. At least I think I saw. Flies? Yeah, flies. What does this look like? Yeah, that looks gross enough. Let's reduce the scale a little bit so they're a bit more appropriate, I suppose. Generic flies. That looks better. That looks a bit more dense, or maybe I just wasn't seeing the other one as well. So let's add a couple flies over there, and let's add a couple of flies over here, like maybe something died. And let's start messing around with the terrain texture itself. So what you can actually do is, of course, apart from putting down sort of height differences and different models and whatnot, sorry, just notice this bump is a little strange. So you're just going to go in there, up the scale here a touch, that's not a touch, and just make that a bit more normal. There we go. Alright, so now that that's done, I want to, as I said, start painting on some textures. And you have some options in terms of your textures, and it does get affected by the vista you pick at the beginning. So, for example, you can paint down forests, which I'll show in a bit. There's different kinds of grass, so let's get our scale up here. So there's grass 1 and grass 2. So as you can see, they are a little different. And there's also mud 1 which is a little wet here, and mud 2, which is dry, sort of caked mud. Then scree 1 and 2. I'll be frank, I'm not sure what scree means or stands for, but it looks like rocky terrain, mountainous texture. Not sure, I'm sure someone will tell me what that means. But you know what? Let's get some muddiness. Let's get this area to look kind of gross and muddy. So let's increase our hardness a touch because it's a little too soft for my liking. And there we go. So it's like these flies have come in this festered, stagnant water. Something is not right here where these skulls are glowing, and we've got this muddy terrain. And let's add some of this dry mud around it. Right. There we go. Let's add some of it here as well. Up the side of the hill. And then over here on the other side, we'll do a little bit of the same. So I'm going to put down... Actually, you know what? Just a quick edit. Just going to undo all of that. Another note, something I'm still trying to get myself familiar with. Just like height had layers, textures have the same. So we're going to add another texture layer here, and we're going to call it muck. Let's call it muck, and we'll do just the mud there. So sorry, I just caught that again. Still familiarizing myself a bit. But yeah, so let's add the mud, and let's add the mud here as well. I think this hill needs to be a little bit wider, or that one needs to be a little bit stuntier. But yeah, let's add this first. Let's get Muddo 1 in there. Shrink this a little bit. And there we go. A little bit of dirty, sort of filthy swamp mud. Alright, there we go. Okay. And now that we have that, let's edit our height again. So what was the issue? That is a smooth, gradual raise. This is sort of shorter. So let's get that a little bit longer. And you'll notice I'm still on central cliffs here. Want to make sure I keep my layers organized. That, again, if you're someone who does like graphic design or 3D work and whatnot, layers and being organized is very important. It helps in the long run if you ever want to revisit something. But okay, I think that's good enough for this central area. You can get up here, hopefully battle in the middle, and we'll get some forests on either side. So I'm going to pick the forest tool here. And as you'll see, it actually goes to the terrain texture sort of painting tool, and forest 01 is selected. Gonna up the scale, and let's enable scattering. That'll sort of change how the brush behaves. As you can see, as opposed to being smooth strokes, it's actually spreading the brush strokes out a little bit. And let's get that sort of up and down the side here. Let's change our scale. Still going way too small. There you go. And let's get a little bit over here as well. I might actually push it closer into our central sort of battleground or our battlefield once that's all generated. Now you'll notice bottom here, loading procedural content is just loading what the trees and stuff look like in a generic battlefield of this type, vista, etc. So it'll just take a minute or two to drop in all the trees, and once they're in, bam, you can see them in all their glory. So we've got this massive forest and this little hilltop in the middle. So it definitely doesn't come close enough. Let's turn off scattering so I have some more control here. And let's just close this off. There we go. Let's just seal this right off. So again, I want to create ambush avenues or the potential to have a head-on battle at the top. And I think that should lead to some interesting sort of conflict zones, I think. Obviously, as I get better, or as I do this more often, I'll get better at map design, and that'll hopefully lead to some more interesting tactical opportunities. That's my intent. I want to create maps that force you to think tactically and have like alternate approaches, etc. Anyway, so that's going to load in now. We've got our mound, if you will, our pass, as it were. Let's add some mountains in the distance, just again for visual effect. They won't necessarily be in the battlefield, or let's leave that for a minute. First, before we keep sort of adding some visual niceties and extras, we're going to add AI intelligence, if you will. This is sort of easy hints to give the engine so that it knows what to do and how to treat the map, like actually understand what's going on. I noticed also, I think I just painted all the trees into the muck layer. Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. We're gonna let it happen for this. I'm not gonna redo that, but again, remember, separate your layers, because that way I could, see how it looks with and without forest, but I made a mistake there. Nonetheless, moving on, let's get ourselves making some of those, again, AI tips and hints and whatnot. So up in the top left here, you'll see I've got a couple of options, and we're going to start with the no-go region here, and that is just an area that the units cannot move through. It's to let the AI know that these are physically, they're physical barriers. So for example, you'll notice this prefab here that we dropped has this red line around it. That lets the AI know that it can't go in there, that it's blocked off. So we're going to do the same thing for some of the other regions here, and I want to make sure, of course, they also don't go through here. So we're just going to click and place this sort of polygon with a very simple, again, super simple, just click to place these points, form a shape, and we're going to include that prefab as well. Maybe a little inefficient. I'm not sure exactly how the engine works, but I'm not sure if that's efficient or not. But yeah, we're just going to click around to make sure that the AI and the units, etc., cannot travel through here. And there you go, closed it, and now that area is a no-go zone. So the units are not going to create traveling paths. I forget, when they're pathfinding, that's the word, they're not going to find that path. That's a no-go zone, and we're going to do the same thing over here as well, just to make sure we're not having any strange conflicts. Let's poke here, make sure that statue is also included in here, and get the skulls. Of course, this side of the cliff, get around, and almost there. Of course, this prefab as well already has its own rules, if you will. Let's get this blocked off as well. So there you have it. We have some no-go zones, so the AI will not pathfind units, whether its own units or your units as a player. They're not going to go through those areas outlined in red, and that's extremely helpful in, organizing movement and making sure stupid things aren't happening on the battlefield. Now, I think I actually want the, you know what? This time, I'm going to add another layer, and I want the trees to stick out a bit more. Just a touch more, and we'll have them fade off. Again, not all of this entire thing is not the battlefield, though. I guess it could be. It's not going to be. That's just massive. All right. There we go. That should do the trick. Maybe we add some more right by the cliff, so it can be a bit riskier. Yeah. And that'll take a minute to pop in, of course. And now that we've set these no-go zones, and I just fixed up my forest a touch, I want to add a playable area. Now, this is the actual region of the map where the battle is going to take place. So let's quickly pop into the orthographic view again, just to see it from the top down. And let's get the playable area painted. So this is, of course, the central area. So I want the deployment zone down here and up here. So I'll zoom out a touch more, and the first click determines the top left corner, and the second click determines the bottom right corner. That's not the best placement. Let's actually get this into a new... So, okay, I'm going to create a new layer here. Oops, not there. Create a new layer here and call it AI engine. Again, I'm sure there's better nomenclature and stuff. Let's move the no-go regions into that layer. I hope I'm not giving anybody who's watching maybe from CA an aneurysm when they're watching this. I do apologize if I just did. And under the same layer, we're going to add this playable area. So how big do we really want it? Maybe from here down to here. It's a lot of forest. Now let's go from here to roughly... Nope, that's too short. Again, just trying to map out how this battlefield actually plays out, where the deployment zones are, etc. So let's go with... Okay, let's go with this. There we go. So there's our playable area now, and now I want to add deployment zones. So I'm going to click on deployment zone. Now, Alliance ID 0 or 1. 0 is the attacker, and 1 is the defender. So let's start with Alliance ID 0. And we're going to give the deployment zone as sort of this. I don't know. Let's go a little bit wider. This is... Nope. Because again, I realize I want to allow for Vanguard deployment, so I can't go edge to edge. We'll say this is the deployment zone for Alliance ID 0. And again, it just takes 2 clicks. And what I'm going to do, just to ensure equality, I'm going to copy the... Alliance sort of or rather the deployment zone. I'm going to move it up to the other side, try and mirror it as closely as possible in terms of placement, and then I'm just going to change the ID of this region to be, if I could find it again, there we go, change it to 1. So now we know they're even size and everything, and of course the terrain itself is a little different, but hey, that's the battlefield. You gotta adapt to what you get. So there you have it, that's our deployment zone setup, and what you can also do is you get an AI hint in there. Default deployment line tells the AI which way to face. You can also change the facing direction in the deployment zone itself, but this will let me just tell the AI where to deploy by default, and even when we load in, where to load the player army in. And you'll notice it's got sort of a little arrowhead, and that tells the AI which way to face. All right, so there we go. They're going to be facing each other. What we can also do is we can set defensive hill as an AI hint, which tells the AI where there are hills. So I'm just going to create this as a massive defensive hill, so the AI knows that there is something worth defending here. Now again, there might be a better way to work this. This is my interpretation of the sort of reference files and the guide files we were given. And as I learn more things, again, I intend to create this tutorial series to help people out in learning how to create their own awesome maps. Hopefully maps that are cooler than this one. But again, I'm just looking for something that'll create sort of a tactical line of interest, I guess. So let's see. Let's take a look at our map here. We've got our little mound, our little sort of cliff here with the skull heads. We've got our forests off to the side, dense, thick trees. We've got our mucky mud right by the skulls. As you can see, we've got our flies floating around. So all pretty cool and really easy as well. You just need to sort of find the things you want, and it's super easy to get it all in there. Now let's see, I'm going to add a couple more things just to, if you go into the sort of world view now, you can see how on this side it all goes off into woodlands, which is fantastic. Maybe I can actually change this, and you can actually paint in this view as well. So let's close this off so it feels a bit more natural, air quotes. And over here you'll see it kind of opens up in this weird wacky way. So we're just going to fix that up if I could. Yes, there we go. Disoriented myself a little bit. So let's get some mountains, because that's the best way to do an invisible wall without being blatant. All right, so let's add mountains. All right, what are you doing here? All right, come on. Let's get again. These models are sort of made in a way that they can intercept in some ways without it seeming unreal, which is awesome. Let's change our scale here. And of course, this does go into decimal places as well, just in case anybody was wondering. And this is just to fill out some gaps. And again, I'm placing these in the wrong place. So undo that. There we go. Distant beauty. Let's call it that. And let's get these mountains into there. This is all AI stuff. Cool. And distant beauty, these mountains. All right. Let's add. No, I don't think we need another mountain there. Let's get a mountain in here. And let's get a mountain here. Let's actually scale this up a little bit. There we go. There we go. Is anyone going to question that? That looks real, doesn't it? maybe let's get, you know what? I'm sure I could find something. I'm wondering if I could, oh, there we go. Is that what I'm looking for? Yeah. Let's get like a forest fire or something. Sure, that works for me. So you come in, if you deploy onto this side of the battlefield, you see this like fire, some village or something got burned. After all, this is the mountain pass. I think we call this Skull Pass, right? So I guess that's, this whole thing is the pass. This perfectly cleared set of trees. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, logic aside, this map I'm going to say is more or less ready. And again, the thought is armies are going to come in and possibly engage in the center here or go in for flanking maneuvers instead. Not the most complicated of maps, but something to get us started and something to just sort of see how simple it is to build maps in Terry. Let's just want to clean this up a little bit. I'm not entirely happy with how the the mound looks, so to speak. I don't buy it. Anyways, all that finessing and finagling will surely take over my life over the next few, years as I try to build more and more battle maps for this game. But let me know what you guys thought of this video. I'm quickly going to now export it, drop it into the engine itself, and take a couple of beauty shots, send it over to Creative Assembly, which time loop I actually would have done last night, but you're hearing about it right now, and hopefully they'll feature it in their stream, which will have happened earlier today. My tenses are getting all messed up. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was informative and showed you sort of what's possible in Terry, what you can do with this tool, and how easy it is to really build your own battlefield. And I think that's an awesome piece of equipment that Creative Assembly has given to us. I'm definitely going to be making more maps, trying to build more sort of tactical situations, and creating some interesting conflict zones and whatnot. And again, if you guys would like some sort of, I guess, tutorial videos as I get more familiar with this and I start understanding the tools and I guess parts a bit more, I'd be more than happy to put together more tutorial videos, or maybe even videos of me making these. Maybe we have a live session where I take requests. Just let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. It's always nice to get your opinion, but this is most certainly a very interesting piece of equipment we've been handed, and I'd love to dig very deep into it. As always, guys, thank you very much for joining me in this quick session of something entirely different. Don't even know what to call it, but hopefully you had a good time. And if you're looking for more, remember, hit that like button, drop a comment. It's extremely helpful in letting me know what you guys are interested in. But until next time, cheers.